All right, we have a customer that has a warehouse with an oil furnace in it. I guess it doesn't matter what kind of furnace it is, but this one's an oil furnace. And they want to keep the warehouse about 35 degrees. And if you push a button on the furnace, it'll run for 15 minutes and they'll have heat. But when the 15 minutes is over, you either have to push the button again or the heat goes back to 35. And then we have an outdoor lockout that if it's above 35, the heat won't come on. So outdoor lockout 35, keep the warehouse 35, and we're going to save some fuel. If it goes above freezing outside, then there's no possible way the building could freeze because the building would pick up heat. It'd be warmer than 35. So that's what we're going to do. Let's use the T3000 controller. We just have the we'll pretend this is a push button to run the oil furnace for 15 minutes. And then we have these knobs that simulate a 10K2 potentiometer or thermistor. These are potentiometers that mimic a 10K2 thermistor, and we're going to measure and simulate indoor temperature and outdoor temperature. And then the only output we have hooked up is the oil furnace. So let's write a program for it. You can direct connect to these T3000s through Ethernet through Cat 5 or 6, but I lost the USB adapter for this. This computer doesn't have a LAN port on it, it's only wireless. So I just connected the T3000 controller to a basic router and then connect to the network wirelessly. All right, let's let's make sure we're on the right control here. So we click the controller we think we're on, and we'll go to output, and we'll just turn the oil furnace on and off, or output 1. So we know we're on the right control. So we're going to name output 1 oil furnace, and we'll label it that as well. And let's take a look at our inputs. So input 1 is going to be our occupied, and that is off on. Input number 2, we're going to make it a 10K type 2 thermistor, degrees Fahrenheit. And input number 3, and input number 2, that's going to be our in temperature, inside temperature. Oops, our first one didn't label there. Okay. And third input, analog input or universal input number 3, outside temperature. Make it 10K type 2 thermistor, degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and we're going to label it OAT. All right, so we got our inputs and outputs labeled and set up. So real quick, analog or universal input 1's occupied, off on. We're gonna use the switch that comes on the board, but it will be a push button in real life. And then our inside temperature and our outside temperature, and then our outputs are oil furnace. That's it. That's all we have for this setup. This is underutilizing this T3000 controller, but we're just going to learn how to set up some basic inputs and outputs and write a program. So let's write a program for our heat, and this is in control basic language, which a lot of controllers still use. All right, so line number 10. If internal temperature or inside temperature is less than 35 and outside temperature is less than 35, then start oil furnace. All right, so if the inside temperature falls below 35 and it's less than 35 outside, the oil furnace is going to start. But that doesn't give us any way to stop the oil furnace, so we need to write a line of code. If our internal temperature gets above 45, then stop oil furnace. In this case, if we're gonna fire this oil burner, it takes several minutes for the heat exchanger to warm up, especially if it's only 35 in there. And we need to let that thing run a while, get all the moisture out of it, and it takes several minutes to reach efficiency. So we're gonna let that thing, if it fires, we're gonna run the warehouse up to 45 and then it'll stop. And then it's gonna be quite a while till the heat comes back on again. So all right, that's our heat program, that's it. So if it's cold enough outside and cold enough inside, it's gonna fire the oil burner. And then it's gonna run up to 45 degrees and then stop. Now we need to write a few lines of code for our 15-minute override here. So we're gonna put a push button on the furnace or near the controller or whatever. And we'll start that for line 50, but let's start line 30. If occupied equals 1, that means it goes into occupied. Someone pushes the button, then go to line 50. And we'll write that, but in a minute here, first we'll write if occupied equals 0, which it should unless someone's standing there pushing the button, then we're going to skip to line 80. So go to line 80. All right, now line 50. If someone presses the occupied button, we want to go to line 50. So we're going to start oil furnace. And if the oil furnace starts, and we're going to go to line 60, wait 0 hours, 15 minutes, and 0 seconds. Then stop the oil furnace. Line 80 is just wait a sec because we need something there. All right. The warehouse will heat to 45 if both temperatures go below 35. It's going to keep the building from freezing and run the burner for a while so we're not short cycling it. And we could change that to 40 degrees or something like that. We could fine tune the program once we get it installed and programmed and running. But if someone pushes the button, it's going to go to line 50. It's going to start the oil furnace. It's going to wait. It's going to run for 15 minutes and then stop the oil furnace. If no one pushes the occupied button, it's always going to skip to line 80, and it's not going to run the furnace other than if the temperature goes low. So let's send that to the controller, and let's try it out. All right, so it's 25 degrees outside, and it's 44 degrees inside. Let's turn our inside temperature down below freezing, and I heard it click. Our oil furnace comes on. Now let's raise the temperature back up above 45 and the oil furnace stops. All right, let's raise the outdoor temperature to like 35, 36, 37, and then let's drop our inside temperature. The oil furnace doesn't come on because it doesn't need to. If it's above freezing outside, it's going to actually, the heat is going to gain or enter into the building, and the building's not going to freeze if it's not freezing outside. So regardless of outside temperature or inside temperature, we're going to make it warm inside and outside. And okay, it's 60 outside and it's 58 or 59 outside, 57 inside. We're going to press the occupied button for a second here, and the oil furnace starts, and it's going to run 15 minutes and warm up whoever's in there. They can get it they can be as comfortable as they like. They just have to keep pushing the button. But because there's a 15-minute time off or timeout, they can't possibly leave the thermostat set way up and waste fuel. All right, that's it. We wrote a basic program, and it works.